Good evening, everyone, and good afternoon to some. My name is Ryan Agard, President of Allied Firefighters of Canada. We want to welcome you, first of all, to Allied and to our first career advancement seminar. It's unique that we are going coast to coast, and I want to thank everyone for taking the time to participate. I want to thank our executive team for their dedication to make this happen. I want to thank our panelists for taking the time to teach us how to get into the fire service as a career, and how to successfully achieve leadership positions within the fire service. But before we proceed with tonight's program, I wanted to give the land acknowledgement. As members of Canadian Fire Services, we respectfully acknowledge that the work we do takes place on the traditional territories of the Indigenous peoples across Canada. We recognize that these lands have been inhabited by Indigenous peoples for millennia, that their deep connection to the land shapes their cultures, traditions, and identities. We acknowledge the ongoing impact of colonization, displacement, and the loss of Indigenous lands and resources. As firefighters, we are committed to upholding the principles of reconciliation, understanding, and respect for Indigenous peoples and their rights. We honor the contributions of Indigenous communities to firefighting and emergency services, and commit to build strong, collaborative relationships rooted in mutual respect and solidarity. Okay, and I will introduce our Master of Ceremonies tonight, Frank Jones, who is Vice President of Allied Firefighters of Canada. So, and thank you, Frank, and the floor is yours.
Thanks very much, President Ryan Agard. First of all, thanks for joining the first career advancement seminar for Allied Firefighters of Canada. My name is Frank Jones, and I'm a firefighter with Toronto Fire Services and Vice President and co-founder of Allied Firefighters of Canada. Allied was birthed in 2020 by a group of fire professionals from various regions and backgrounds in Canada. Through our shared experiences and recognizing the need for more representation in the fire service from equity-deserving groups, we formed a leadership team who have become a very unified family. Now, prior to 2020, there was a meeting that I had personally with one of the firefighters in Toronto. And when I first met this firefighter, I didn't know he was a person of color. I only knew the situation that he was in. And that conversation was a 3-hour conversation that had nothing to do with what I was actually there for. And one of the first things he said to me was, "How is it that I'm on this job and I don't know who you are?" This was a senior firefighter to me. And from that moment on, I vowed that I will create a community where we're all connected. And the mission of Allied is to create a community where we're all connected. From that next meeting, I met 7 other firefighters. And in that meeting, aside from the calls being the greatest thing about this job and enjoying the experience, was that meeting with the 7 firefighters, all from various experiences from 30 down to 10, all of which cried in that meeting because they simply didn't know that each other was there. I've met many people who have asked what Allied Firefighters is. I'm always a little hesitant to put ourselves into a box, but at the very core, we're a support resource for many future and current firefighters and offer a brave space to be who they are. AFCAPC naturally attracts members of underrepresented groups, but we are humans first and are open and welcome to all. We want all aspiring firefighters and fire professionals to find refuge in community, which will not only make them stronger, but will make them stronger for their respective services. I'm going to pass it over and get right into the meat of this presentation to Jordan Stevens. Jordan is going to be talking about exploring a career in the fire service.
We are going to be talking about exploring a career in the fire service. It's a beautiful career. It's one of the best jobs on the planet. And there's a lot of different ways that you can get access to helping out in the community. So trying to get into the fire service, there's a bunch of different jobs that we have, right? Everybody obviously is aware of being a firefighter, but there's also wildland fire, there's fire prevention, there's fire education, and there's even dispatch, right? So all of them are all vital parts of the very, very important network that connects the fire service and make sure that all of us can do our jobs and respond to the community for any sort of emergency that happens, okay? But primarily, most of you guys here are looking for firefighting, and so there's 5 different types of firefighting in Canada. We're going to keep this really, really high level. We don't want to bore too many people, but it's very important to recognize all the different ones that we have, right? So we've got municipal firefighting. That's the most common thing. You can see the gentleman on the top right. He's got a structural firefighting gear. And you've also got airport firefighting, which is right at the bottom. You can see the guy driving that thing that looks like a transformer truck. He's able to move and pump at the same time, which is really, really cool. And they are at all of the major airports across Canada. Okay. You've also got military firefighting, right? So those gentlemen that you see on the top right, you can see that those guys are protecting some sort of military capacity, right? It's a big tank. It's a big helicopter. They're on the naval base. It's a really, really cool and exciting different wrinkle to fire. Then you've also got wildland firefighting, which is an amazing experience. Gives a lot of people great experiences to go out there, kind of be in the bush and help protect our natural resources. And then you've got industrial firefighting. Industrial firefighting is basically, Bruce Power Plant, OPG, the oil sands, all those big places that don't have access to a municipal department. Industrial firefighting units are created specifically for it. Okay. So now just running across the country, there's a whole bunch of different types of qualifications that are required for each of the positions that people are trying to get into. We're specifically going to focus on firefighting. You've got British Columbia. They have 4 big cities that are out there. There's tons of different municipal departments, but the most important thing is you got to make sure you have your BC license, which is a class 3 with air brake. You got to make sure you get your NFPA 1001. You have to apply for a BC EMA license, which is basically an advanced version of the first aid license. You can do your EMR if you're here in Ontario and kind of move over to just write the exam. And then there's no regional testing over there. So there's no OFAI or FSO or anything like that. Okay, then we've got minimum qualifications for Saskatchewan, right? So you guys should be screenshotting this as we kind of go through. You've got Saskatoon and Regina. Those are the 2 largest cities. Again, you need to have that truck driver's license. In Saskatoon specifically, they're looking for the public fire protection certification. So it's a really big program that you get completed, and you'll get your pre-service, you'll get pump ops, you'll get fire instructor, you'll get hazmat operations, and you'll get even fire inspector. And then high school diploma is what's required out there. They also are looking for people to have ACP and PCP, and in-house training is also not a major thing out there. Manitoba, we're just flying across the country really, really quickly. Again, the big thing for most firefighting jobs across the province or across the country, guys, you want to make sure you have the local truck driver's license, figure out exactly what minimum qualifications they're looking for. So in Winnipeg, it's very, very robust. They're looking for guys that have 1001, 1072, which is your hazmat and pre-service. They're looking for pump ops. They're looking for surface water training. They're looking for vehicle rescue training. And they're looking for 1031, which is fire inspector as well. And if you stay for the end, you'll see a lot of the chiefs are going to be talking about specialized training, and so they'll unpack some of this information for you. Okay, we've got Ontario. So the bulk of you guys are coming from Ontario. We're going to ask a few questions later on, but everybody knows the biggest cities are Toronto, Ottawa, Mississauga, Brampton, and Hamilton. You need to have a DZ license. I call it the big four. So you want to make sure you have your Ontario DZ license. You want to make sure you have your 1001, which is pre-service and hazmat operations. Smaller departments sometimes ask for 1002 or 1006 experience, which is the rescue training and the pump op. So being able to manage the actual pump panel on a fire truck. For the most part, high school diploma is the minimum qualifications, and it ranges. Some departments want standard first aid. Some people want EMR, which is emergency medical responder. There's different levels of first aid education required. And in Ontario, we're very specific. We're the ones that have OFAI and FSO. Okay, so you've got some departments that require OFAI, you've got some departments that use FSO, you got some departments that do their own in-house testing. You can screenshot this one right here. You'll see Vaughan recently left OFAI, and Mississauga, Richmond Hill, Windsor, London. All of those guys are doing in-house testing. Okay, so that means no outside regional test required, and you can just apply and go through there. Okay, we'll answer some more questions at the end for sure. Keep going across the country, guys. We've got Quebec. Quebec is very special as well. They have a 3-year diploma called Fire Safety Program that is a minimum requirement. So it's a 3-year investment before you even can become and apply or start applying to be a firefighter. Okay, and then across the pond in Nova Scotia, you've got Halifax and Cape Breton. There you'll need a Class 5 license with air brake. You'll also need NFPA 1001. Actually, sorry, you won't need NFPA 1001 1072. And high school diploma is sufficient, no first aid requirement, and do a lot of in-house testing. Okay. Last stop on our flight across the country, we're going to be talking about Newfoundland. The largest city is St. John's, and they're very similar to some of the other provinces. You need your NFPA 1001, you need your high school diploma, you need first aid requirement, which is advanced first aid, St. John's ambulance, and then in-house testing is not a thing. They don't have like a regional testing like OFAI or anything like that. Okay, guys. Okay, so we're gonna set up a quick little poll real quick. We are going to ask you guys if you can respond to the poll, if you can see it. The question is, are you seriously considering applying to a department in another province, right, in order to take the next step in your fire career, right? So we've got it coming in pretty quickly, 11 people, 15 people, it's flying in. I really appreciate you guys participating in the poll. We've got a lot of activity on this, and so this is really cool, right? And we're seeing about a split right now. You can see 37% are considering it. Oh, it's moving. And 60% are not considering it, right? So yeah, so I mean, you can see sometimes people just want to get up and move across the country and take advantage of the opportunity. So that's why we share this information, because it's hard to kind of get access to it. And so make sure you guys are taking screenshots or send us an email after the fact, and we'll forward this actual presentation to you. Okay. Okay, so let's close that poll for now, guys, and keep going. All right, so what exactly are fire departments looking for, right? Minimum qualifications, relevant work experience, good personality fit and shared lived experiences, diversity and representation from the community. All of these things are very, very important. And I put it in this order because you can't even get an opportunity to interview and show how much of a great candidate you are until you have the minimum qualifications, right? So hopefully you guys took some screenshots for the provinces that you really like. And if not, you can send us an email after and we'll send this entire deck to you. Then you need relevant work experience, right? So what is relevant work experience? It could be anything from, actually being a volunteer firefighter in your local community. It could be things like, working in construction or the trades, or working in customer service jobs, or working in any type of problem solving capacity. It could be analyst work, right? Working on a computer, could be, working in performance arts, could be in professional sports, a whole bunch of different things. The key is making sure that you can communicate it effectively and share it with your interviewers that are going to meet with you. And then after that, they're looking for good personality fit and shared lived experiences, right? So they want to make sure that you're a good person, because firefighting is a very, very intimate job. You're going to be spending a lot of time with your crew eventually, 24 hours at a time. And so they want to make sure that the people that they bring into the organization are good fits and have the ability to kind of connect, because you go to some crazy calls and you have some long days. And so you have to make sure that you have good people working on that truck. And then as Canada gets more diverse and starts to have more people coming in from all different parts of the world, and more people are exposed to the idea of becoming a firefighter, diversity and representation in the community is very, very important. So if you can focus on not only just connecting with, and it's more than just skin color, right? It's about a whole bunch of different skills that you have. It's about different mindsets and perspectives and lived experiences that you have. And that all kind of makes the fire service represent the actual community. Okay. So let's get to the nuts and bolts of this stuff. The key to a good resume, okay? So format and overall appearance. You want to make sure that you have a document that looks like an actual fire resume. Very, very important. If it doesn't, if you have pictures and colors and, and it's formatted improperly and there's a whole bunch of, weird margins and that kind of stuff, it's never gonna fly through the system, okay? Then you also want to make sure you have no spelling and grammar mistakes. It's very, very important that you get somebody to kind of review it and make no spelling mistakes, because that's the last thing you want. If they see that you misspelled the chief's name in your cover letter, or you have, bad punctuation and bad grammar throughout the document, you're basically kiboshing your opportunity. Okay. Another key is to make sure that it's a one-page cover letter and a two-page resume, maximum 3 pages. Okay, guys. If Elon Musk can fit his entire massive work experience into 1 page, you can fit your 10 to 15 years of experience into 2 pages, right? You want to make sure that it's an easy document for people to read, because it's everybody's attention span is only so much now, right? And so you'll have like the application pool open and you'll have 1,200 people apply or 1,300 people apply, and you can easily see how if your document is too long, they won't get through the entire thing. Okay. You also want to make sure that your things are optimized so that it can get through the application tracking systems. Okay, so get somebody to review it. Make sure that it's very important you get somebody who got some eyes on it. Maybe get a friend who works in business, or your mom or your cousin or somebody who works in HR. Get somebody to review it before you send in that application. Don't just wing it. Don't just push it through at the end of the day, or at the end of the application cycle, because it's going to go into the application system, and you're going to make sure that, or if it doesn't get actually put through, and you're not optimized and it's not looking the right way, and it's got spelling errors and it's not putting you in your best light, you're never going to get an opportunity to apply an interview. Okay, so firefighter panel interviews, right? They're never about your technical skills. They're focused on behavioral, situational, and general competency questions. Very, very important that you guys talk about or take some time to think about your own life and your lived experience, all the things that you guys have gone through, all the different jobs that you've had, all the different volunteering, the sports that you've played, the different things that you've done throughout your life. Make sure that you think about those stories and how they relate to the fire service. The key are those behavioral stories. So they want to ask you a question like, tell me a time when you resolved the conflict, or tell me a time when you had to provide great customer service, or tell me a time when you solved a problem at work, right? Make sure that you're taking the time to focus and can structure your stories in a way so that you can answer those questions. Then you have the situational questions, right? So situational questions are when they ask you a question like, what would you do if one firefighter is making or bullying another firefighter, right? Or what would you do if you catch a firefighter putting something in their pocket that they shouldn't do, right? These are very important questions that you have to just understand and know how to answer like a professional would, right? And get some experience, get some professional working experience so that you can kind of think about how you've reacted in those situations, right? And then general competency questions. So those are the type of questions where they just ask you, you know, why do you actually want to be here? Why do you want to be a firefighter, right? What makes you interested in working for this particular city? They ask these questions because they really want to know that you are buying into the idea of being a firefighter, and you have the ability to kind of communicate effectively what the fire department is trying to achieve, right? So they can plug you into any truck, plug you into any big problem, and you have the general competency required to be an asset to the team. And all that being said, right? I know I'm saying a lot of stuff, guys, but they're evaluating your communication skills, your poise, your confidence, and honestly, just whether or not they like you, right? Sometimes it comes down to just, you know, I just get a great vibe from this person, or, you know, I really see myself in this person, or I just like the way that they communicated. And it's those simple things. If you can effectively communicate that, you'll put yourself in a good spot. Okay, so the key to a good interview. Okay, so again, we got our structural firefighter. He's focused. You can see he's carrying a bunch of flashlights. He's got his Scott pack. He's got his pike pole. He's ready for action, right? But that gentleman on that screen, he's got good transferable skills, right? So maybe he worked in construction before this. Maybe he was he was a personal trainer before this. So he's got the physical capacity, right, to actually execute the work. Maybe he worked in customer service. And so he's there and he's going to actually solve the problem and be the first point of contact for the homeowner at an emergency, right? To make sure you have good transferable skills, and you communicate that. And then know how to structure your answers, right? So you got to make sure you know how to talk. Don't talk into yourself, into your chest. You know, speak up, look at whoever's asking the question in the eye. Make sure that you can structure your answers in a good way. Preparation and practice. Make sure that you take the time to actually prepare and practice. Never, ever just leave it to the last minute and wing your interview, right? It's the most important part of the entire process. You have to make sure that you put in the necessary steps. You train on pre-service skills, you train on how to do forcible entry, you train on how to do hose pulls, you do all these other little things multiple times over. You want to make sure that you're practicing and preparing your answers. And all that will help you reduce your anxiety and your anxiety and the nerves when you get the jitters, when you're actually sitting in front of the chiefs and they've got the brass in front of you and they're looking at you like they know everything. You want to make sure that you're reducing your own anxiety and nerves, because they're evaluating your poise and your confidence and your ability to communicate during stressful times. Okay, so what is recruit class like in most departments? So let's say you've done this successful interview, you've got the offer. A lot of you guys are thinking, okay, you know, future steps, what does it actually look like for actual recruit class? Well, it could be anywhere, depending on the department you get onto. It could be anywhere from 8 to 10 weeks long, sometimes up to 20 to 25 weeks, right? We're in Toronto right now, and you guys do a 20-week recruit class. I'm from Markham Fire. We did a 10-week recruit class. It all depends on the size of the department, the amount of resources, and how quickly they need you to be on the floor, right? And then it's focused on building the base level skills. So a lot of the time you're replaying and doing all the stuff you did in pre-service, because like I just said on the last slide, repetition and practice and preparation is key. If you can turn the skills that are essential to be a firefighter into muscle memory almost, and you can just you don't even have to think about things. You can kind of just, through intuition, just figure out everything and perform optimally. That's what success looks like for a recruit training officer. Safety is key. So they're never going to do crazy cowboy stuff, but they're also always evaluating and watching your fit, right? So this is another opportunity, because you'll be on probation for, you know, anywhere from 12 months to 14 months, depending on the department. And this is an opportunity for them to watch. Straight to asking or figuring out how to make a good first impression, okay? So good, strong handshakes, guys. Some of these questions might be answered in the chat or at the chat section at the end of this, but make sure you have a good, strong handshake and you're smiling with the eyes if you have ever an opportunity to connect with somebody on fire. Retain the information that you're taught, right? That's one of the most important things. Take the time to study what you're weak on. So if you don't like medicals, if you don't like, ladder deployments, if you don't like hose pulls, whatever it is that you don't like, make sure that you turn those weaknesses into strengths and learn the flow of your station and your crew, right? Work hard to be likable. It's very, very important that you in that first year, you build a great first impression and you mesh with the team and you set yourself up for a great 20 to 30 year career. If you can kind of relate with people and show that you're one of the guys or girls on the crew and you can relate with them and you're reliable and you're trustworthy, it's very, very important. And the biggest part of that is owning up to your mistakes. So if you make a mistake, be accountable, right? It's never blame anybody else. The buck stops with you. Always try to take control of the situation. Okay. This is a great guy that I think everybody should Google after we get off this call. His name is Chief David Rose, down in the U.S., and he's like a legend in the U.S. Fire Service. Your diet is more than what you eat, right? So not only are you supposed to be watching what you eat and kind of what you put into your mouth, but also figure out what you're watching and what you're listening to. Very, very important that if you want to be a firefighter or you're pursuing this career, that you focus on learning as much as you can so that you can be effective in all situations. And just be a humble student, right? I'm 3 years on the job. I learned so much from this panel that I work with on a volunteer basis. I learned so much from my captain. He's 25 years on the job. My first captain was 35 years on the job. You are a student, and every single day you want to make sure that you're learning something to kind of make you a better firefighter. Okay. Always be early, guys. Very, very important, right? If something starts at 7, try your best to get there at 6:30. 6 o'clock, right? Especially in those first 6 years of you working, you want to make sure that if you're early, you're on time, and if you're on time, you're late. Okay, and be the hardest worker in the room, right? So always kind of go the extra mile and do whatever you can to kind of show that you're a valuable member to the team, even if you don't know anything, right? Or you're the weakest, or you don't fit into this, or just make sure that you're the hardest worker in the room, and always treat this like you got to kiss yourself every time you come into the station, right? Like, it's an honor to wear this uniform. You know how competitive it is in order to get hired. You know how hard it is in order to just stay on the job and to get good at the job. And so you have to treat everybody with respect and with dignity. Okay. All right. So tons and tons of content was given to you guys. Hopefully you guys were screenshotting that. We had some technical issues, so I totally apologize for that, guys, but really, really appreciate you guys listening. If you have any questions, kind of fill up the chat. Chats have been going already. So if you have any more questions or you've been waiting to kind of reach out, just put the chats in there, or we'll put the questions in the chat and we'll answer them as we go along. Okay. Just scrolling back up. Actually, I can pass it to my my panelists here. You guys, have you guys been answering any questions? Have you guys seen some stuff?
Yeah, I can answer.
Yeah,
that.
I wasn't talking to him, so sure. Go ahead, Lachlan. You can step in there.
Yeah. So one question that came in, whether or not we had sample scoring rubrics for interview questions. If you submit your request to AFCAPC.com, info@AFCAPC.com, we can find you a sample scoring rubric. Be mindful that every jurisdiction is going to have different scoring rubrics for their interviews, because the scoring rubrics will be based off of the questions and what each jurisdiction is looking for as far as answers are concerned. But we can definitely try and find one for you and provide that for you. And that was pretty much the only one that came up during your time there, Jordan.
Okay, thanks, Lachlan. There was some really good information there that Jordan put through. Keeping in mind, we're going to have this presentation available for you to go through and review. One of the things I tell aspiring firefighters, especially when they get to the interview stage, is that you must practice. Like the things you do on the fire ground, you must practice your interview. Find a friend, do a mock interview, and you must constantly do this. Do it in front of a mirror. because these are the things that are going to prepare you for that interview once you walk into that room. Because I can tell you, as much as you prepare, once you walk into that room with a panel of 3 chiefs or a couple chiefs and a firefighter looking at you, you will be nervous. So practice, practice, practice. I can't stress that enough.
Find yourself a good mentor. Your mentor will be invaluable to you, but find the right mentor. You know, it's important. There are lots of people out there that will, you know, claim that you know, they have the right info for you. Be sure when you go into this that you get that right feeling. You're going to know in your gut whether or not this mentor is the right mentor for you. Also, you know, if it hasn't been mentioned, make sure the courses that you take are, you know, IFSAC or Pro Board certified. You know, those are, if that's the requirement, make sure you have those before you go out and spend a lot of money and find out, you know, there's no accreditation to it. So, you know, I know if you guys are going to stick around for the next segment, you know, our first guest speaker, in terms of academic standard and evaluation, is very, very well versed.
Thanks for that, Chris. Guys, one of the reasons I'm actually here today is because I had a great mentor in Chris Porter. He schooled me, I visited him often at the hall. We went through things, and every couple of weeks I reported to Chris to tell him where my progress was. So I'm just reiterating the fact that having a good mentor is key to you navigating this process.
Further to what Frank's saying, again, you want to be around people that you want to emulate and people who have been through things before. That's the only way that they're going to know what you're going through and what different stages you're at. And then also another point that Frank had made, that when you're interviewing in front of chief officers, you will be nervous. That, in a sense, part of your testing as a firefighter. You're going to be put under the most intense situations, and that's the essence of the job, to perform under immense pressure. So that's something that you do have to prepare for. So just to add to Frank's point.
Hi everyone, my name is Patty, Montreal Fire. Been on for 8 years, and my advice for people trying to get on is it's a lot of work and will take a lot of sacrifice. So, you know, if that means not going out or maybe stop drinking for a bit, whatever it is, you really have to focus on what your goals are.
And to Patty's point, you have to commit yourself to getting this job. And that takes, one of the things, I'll just give you an example. What I did was every day I had a couple sayings that I said to myself in the mirror, in the bathroom, every day, that I would commit myself to getting this job. And you have to put those things in practice. This is, you'll hear everybody say this is one of the best jobs in the world, but you have to commit yourself to getting to that point. And if you're slacking in any point or in any area of your recruitment, then it will show. You can't use bad words here, but you can't half-ass it. You got to give it everything. And one of the things Allied is going to try to do is really provide some of that mentorship and provide, you know, one place where you can get all the information that you need in order to navigate your way through the process. But you have to commit yourself to the process. Does anybody have any more questions maybe that they might have specifically for recruitment or interviews that you may want to post in the chat and we can answer? Don't be shy.
I just had one that came up here. That was pretty interesting, and I really appreciate the question. So this person says that their husband has 12 years experience as a firefighter in Hong Kong, and they're relocating to the Markham area. Their challenge is that the husband doesn't speak English very well. So I made a comment to them that most jurisdictions will have a language requirement for their local language, whether it's being French or English. However, most fire departments really value additional languages. So if this person's husband take some English classes just to bolster their communication skills, they would probably be a really valuable asset to whatever fire department they apply to, considering they have 12 years experience plus additional language skills.
Just to add to that, I work for Markham Fire, so I mean we have a huge Chinese population, and so I mean your skills would be very be in English and Cantonese and or Mandarin. I don't know which dialect you speak, but Markham Fire would love to have more people that can speak languages because we have a huge Chinese population. With that being said, you got to make sure that he has the minimum qualifications, right? So whatever we're looking for, most of the time it's NFPA 1001, 1072, which is pre-service plus hazmat operations. Plus, we also require OFAI stage 1, 2, and 3, which is like our regional testing. Starts with an aptitude test, then vision and hearing. Then it goes to a treadmill test, and then a skills and an FPAT, which is your firefighter physical ability skills. You got to have all that done, and then you also have to have a DZ license, and you have to make sure that you interview well, right? And so it's a big process to be able to go from. If I scroll back up, I can see Hong Kong. Yep. So if it's a big process to not only get over here, right? It's a huge undertaking, but then to get all your skills and qualifications transferred over, you got to make sure that he's diligent and he's focused, and the sky's the limit from there. Okay.
Thanks, Jordan. Another one here involving recruitment. How do you prepare for fire aptitude tests? So just if I look back on my beginnings as a firefighter, a structural firefighter, there's a lot of resources available for aptitude tests. There's books. There's also websites that are dedicated to aptitude tests. They were all instrumentally helpful in being successful in aptitude tests. Yeah, so that's one question there. What's good advice for older recruits making a career change? Somebody want to take that one on? Chief Agard, maybe?
I'm thinking part of it is you look at the life experience as an asset, not a liability. Yeah, you might be older, but you're going to bring different skills to the table. A certain work ethic, especially if you've had some success in your previous career, which I know a lot of departments look favorably on. And yeah, it tends to translate into more success.
Thanks, Ryan. Here's another question, and I'm going to send this one over to Frank because Allied's actually been doing some work on this question. The question is, I see that swimming is one of the tests in stage 3. Is this going to continue in the future for recruitments?
Man, Lockley, you put me right on the spot.
Yeah.
I would say at this particular moment, as of today, I would say continue trying to work to learning how to swim. Consider looking at, I don't know what area this person's from, but maybe look at the requirements for a swim to survive. So on this particular day, the requirements are not changed. However, that may change in the very near future. So if you keep connected to Allied, we certainly can keep you up to date on the certain things that are happening in the background, but I can't officially speak specifically about that. I know the swim test is a contentious issue, especially with underrepresented groups in terms of our access to pools, whether or not we swim or not. So what I will tell you is that, keep the desire to be a firefighter there. If you can, find a swim coach or a pool or someone that can help you swim. in the meantime, because there is always that chance that, on a call, if you do become a firefighter, that you'll fall in the water. You're going to need to know how to survive. So it is a necessary skill that we think the fire service needs. But as far as it being a bona fide requirement at this particular point, that is on the fence.
Great, thanks, Frank. Another one here. Is there any jobs that stand out above the rest when we're talking about people trying to recruit into the fire service? What kind of previous experience are jurisdictions looking for? Patty, you want to take that one?
It's hard. That one's hard to say. I think that the key here is that any job that you have, if you can find relatable experiences that you can pull from those jobs. So no matter what it is, you can find elements of firefighting in any job that you've had. You just have to be able to connect the dots. So there are certain things that fire departments like to see more, such as military or trades, like other emergency services, volunteer work, stuff like that. But, if you don't have any of that, you can still apply with the job experience that you have. You just have to be able to relate those skill sets. Certain things that fire departments are looking for are your problem-solving skills, your mechanical aptitude, customer service, and compassion. So if you can find those characteristics within your jobs, you can explain that in your interview panel.
I'll just jump in there and kind of add to what Patty was talking about. When I got into the fire service, my background was in finance. I worked on a trading floor, so not something that is really fire related. However, as Patty said, I took those skills of working in a very fast-paced environment, being able to make decisions quickly and confidently, and translated those skills to fire. And that was actually one of my questions in my interview, and was able to take an example from finance and trading and relate it to the fire service.
I'll just add a little bit to that as well. So inside the fire service, even as firefighters, there's lots of opportunities to do a lot of different types of projects and different types of positions within the fire service. So, maybe a hazmat coordinator or safety liaison, or, working on CFAI accreditation, all those different types of things that require a wide background of people to work on those projects. So the fire service isn't just looking for linear skills of how to be a skilled laborer. They're looking for a lot of different skills that they can use in different aspects of the organization. So no one job is over and above another. They're just looking for you to be able to apply what you've used in your previous careers to the fire service.
If I could also add different skill sets. Like I know within our department, we've seen people background in mental health professions, like we said, the trades, different things. A big thing is they want to see how progressive you were within your career. Again, Frank and Patty had both said, how do you translate that into the fire service? Okay, the extra things you do on your jobs, you join committees, do you join the safety team, health and safety committee? What initiatives have you started? Different things like that are transferable, because that shows who you're going to be once you get in the fire service. Are you there to make things better, or are you just there to collect a paycheck?
Great, thanks, Ryan. Looks like we got a couple more minutes here. So one question that came up here is, do departments pick out certain words on the resume screening? And if so, would a resume cover letter program help? and how much would you recommend it? So for larger jurisdictions, they do use resume and cover letter software that goes into a program. If you are looking at the posting for a firefighter, make sure you're in your cover letter, you are addressing the skills and the traits that they're looking for in the posting. Make sure that's directly in your cover letter, because those programs will pick out keywords from the actual job description. Whether or not those programs to help you with that are good or not, I can't speak to that. I'm not sure if anybody else can about the software for resumes. Here, it's pretty specific about training. So what are the main differences between a full-time firefighter training program, emergency medical responder, and blended firefighter training programs? Anyone? So I can answer this. I work for a couple of academies out in Alberta. So we have you know, depending on the education institution, they have different programs, and they format them in different ways, and you'll have to do the research on what school you're applying to really flush out exactly what credentials that you're going to get out of it. Much like what Chris Porter was talking about, making sure that whatever educational institution, make sure that their credentials are certified, so that you get IFSAC or Pro Board certification. Some of those programs are just fire specific, 1001, 1072, or it's going to be transitioned to 470, which is hazmat, 1006, 1002, which is a driver operator. So those are like fire specific, and some of them also blend in primary care paramedics or advanced care paramedics. So it's going to be just individually based on which program you're looking at, which province you're looking at, and what credentials you're looking at. So be very specific of the training programs that you're looking for. Another question here is, how important is volunteer experience when applying? I heard it makes a big difference. I'm just going to speak to this really quickly, and I'll let the other firefighters jump in here. So for Edmonton, it's a very big component, both on the resume and in our interview now. We really want to flush out good people, good stewards of the community, people that are really comfortable working in the community. So volunteer experience is very important. Anybody else want to talk about that? Oh, I would say this, that the volunteering doesn't have to be fire specific. It's just, I always recommend that when you're choosing something to volunteer, it's something that you're passionate about, so that that volunteer service doesn't end when you become a firefighter, that you continue being that steward of the community well into your service.
Yeah, so if I can add to what Lachlan's saying, I'm going to take it from more of a, firstly, a volunteer firefighter experience, and then I'll lead into a, you know, volunteering in your community aspect. In terms of volunteer firefighting, you know, those municipalities, a lot of times you have, you might have some composite departments. You have a couple full-time halls, and then you have a bunch of outlying halls, which are all, you know, staffed by volunteers. Having said that, as your community grows, you know, there could be the potential need for another station. So you need to keep that in mind. A lot of what I find now is that, you know, in the farming communities or in the rural areas, the interest just isn't there, and there's huge challenges keeping volunteers. A lot of young people like to use it as a stepping stone, and then there's a lot that you know, just want to be, you know, volunteer firefighters because they love their job, and that's okay. Having said that, if you decide that you're going to be a volunteer firefighter, make a commitment. And the reason I say make a commitment is because your work ethic at the volunteer station is going to translate to your work ethic in the career sector. All right. So maintain that work ethic all the way through. Show up for calls, do a good job, make sure you meet your training. Do a good job when you get to calls and learn. Because that's, when you get to the interview stage and they ask you what type of volunteer experience you have, and they say, well, I volunteered for this particular, station or hall. And then they talk to that chief and they say, yeah, but he was never here. That's going to affect you down the road. All right. And in terms of, community service, that's part of the job of a firefighter is being active in the community. Through public education, prevention initiatives. When you start to look at, the stats and the effect that public education has in terms of the number of incidents because of education and, population's increasing. So you see the number of calls go up, but when you actually look at it, per capita, the number of calls in certain areas are going down because of public education. So get out there, volunteer in your community, learn the job, develop those good relationships. You never know who that person's gonna know. Right? You could be volunteering for somebody who is best friends with somebody on that interview panel. Right. And then, at that point, they can vouch for your character.
Great, thanks, Chris. That's all the time we have for Q&A. I want to pass it over to Frank to introduce our career advancement component of the seminar.